Once upon a time, in a faraway town, there were two teachers, Miss Denny and Miss Reeves. Both were high school math teachers. One was very against conforming to technology, while the other embraced it.
Hey, Brooke, I'm over here.
Okay, be right there. So how was your day at work today?
Well, it was interesting to say the least. For some reason, my kids just won't listen to me.
What do you mean? I've had almost all of the kids that you have this year in the past, and almost all of them listened really well. When are they not listening to you?
Well, it just seems that any time I am trying to lecture, I can't get anything across to them. They always seem to be distracted by something else.
Can I tell you something and you'll just listen?
Yeah, of course. You always can.
I want you to know that having sat in on your classes, I think you're a great teacher. However, with all the kids these days being so into technology, I think that part of your problem with getting across to them is that you just don't use enough technology. You know that more than half of your class has a cell phone and everyone has an iPad, so why not use that to your advantage instead of letting it distract your kids? That's what I have had to do.
I know, I just hate using all the technology because it gives the kids such an easy way to cheat and to get answers in ways that they shouldn't. I want the kids in my classes to have to work for the answers that they get.
I know what you mean. However, it really does seem to help in my class to use the technology to your advantage. For every lesson that I teach, I put up a different podcast of the class, so if any of my students miss class or just don't remember something from the class, all they have to do is access that on the page. It seems to be extremely beneficial for the students because they then can access the entire lecture from home, and not only does it have the audio, but they can see the work that I am doing in the background. And even for the topics that are tougher to understand, I make sure that I do some of the recordings after class that are just of example problems being worked through step by step.
I don't know though, is it really worth all the time that you put into it? I feel like my kids wouldn't watch the podcast and would still be asking me what we did in the class that they missed. And how do you put it up for them to find it?
That's the beauty of technology, though. We can see who views what. So while I still have kids that ask me what we did in the class that they missed, I can see if they look at the podcast for the class, as well as I can also see who looks at it to know who might be struggling in class or not. As for where they can find it, we use wiki pages, which can be edited by all the students in the class. We have one wiki web page that has all the content for the entire semester, separated into sections and chapters.
How do wikis work if my kids can edit them so they are incorrect?
Although that can happen, you have to just make sure that to keep on top of the page and make sure that the information is correct that is put up. At the beginning of each lesson, I put up my podcast as well as all my notes from the class, and then the students can add anything that they find helpful as well. I include a link to our classroom blog spot that we use for discussion topics and questions.
I understand what you're using the blog for and the wikis, but I'm just not really sure about all of this. I don't really know how it helps with math. I just think that math should not be technological.
See, that's the beauty of math. I still do a lot of the problems and everything on the board for my students, but the blog is constantly running on the overhead screen for my students to be posting questions so I can quickly address them for the whole class. And I don't know about you, but I'm not a very good drawer. So when it comes to graphs and to be able to put them up on the board for the kids to see exactly how they are supposed to be drawn and have them to scale, it is extremely helpful. Also, it is really convenient because I have set up the online Texas Instruments calculator so I can project what's on my calculator up on the screen so that I can show students what buttons to press as well as how to manipulate the calculator to do something.
Well, it really sounds like it's going to be a lot of work, but it sounds like it is pretty beneficial too. So when they are in class, do you have them on the blog or what?
That's what's so awesome. I'm able to project the blog up onto the screen, and they all have usernames so no one knows who's asking what questions unless they tell each other. But it's a great way to get all the kids to ask questions without feeling like they are dumb. Since I started using the blog, my kids have been more interactive in class. They seem to truly want to be a part of the discussion in class. It also keeps them busy because if they are always having something to be doing that I will be able to see in an instant, they are going to do it and don't have time to be very distracted. It also is a great way to keep track of participation points because I know who is asking what questions based on their usernames. So overall, it is a great way to track the learning of the students, giving them points for participating, and it is always up online so if later on they have trouble at all, the questions and answers are all online.
Do you think that is going to be a huge amount of work? That is worth it though?
I really do think that it's 100% worth it. It seems to make my students be more involved and less distracted, and I'm not going to say that for the first time it's not going to be a lot of work, but it's worth it in the long run, and then you have all the stuff for years to come.
That is very true. I think that I will have to try and implement this into my classroom. Would you be willing to help me out, though, to start so that I'm understanding how to use all the technology myself?
Yeah, of course I will help. For some of the class that we both teach, I can give you some of my paperwork stuff that you can put online. And then for the discussion stuff, you can come and sit in on one of my classes and figure out how it works.
That sounds great. Now that I've been able to think about it and process all of it, I really think that it is going to help me in my class.
And in the faraway land where two best friends had two very different teaching styles, a new day brought a new way to teach for one. After just a week of using the technology in her classroom, Miss Reeves found that her students were participating more and their grades were going up, but most of all, their attention was set on class and not other distractions.